What's up, YouTube? Vinyl Community, VC. Eric B. High Definition Television, back again, got another video. Last one we uploaded was my favorite pickups of 2022. I did think that maybe I would have another video or two posted between then and now. I had some time off. I decided to spend it just relaxing, not doing much of anything, honestly. Spent some time with family, spent some time with friends, spent the entire time off camera, except for a couple streams that I took part in. That said, what are we doing today? What are we doing? What brings me back to the YouTube? Vinyl Tag 2023 started this year as usual by Rob Walker, Let the Music Play. I think I skipped out on like the last 2 years of Vinyl Tags, which I don't know why. I usually have a pretty good time doing these videos. 20 questions, all about records. What more could you want? I thought about doing a little bit of a challenge, all cassettes, but ultimately decided to go the traditional route. Eric Weinbender might be a little bit bummed since it was his suggestion. Not a bad one. Not a bad one. Let's get right into it. Favorite album of 2022. Well, you guys may have caught me on December 30th when I did participate in the Heavy Metallurgy live stream, recounting 5 favorite picks of 2022. I tried to leave anything that I showed in that video with Marty and them off of my answers on this. And this is a record that I fucking really loved when it came out. And then a bunch of other stuff came out between it and the end of the year that kind of overshadowed it. So I've been revisiting this a lot, and man, this is just a genius record. We've got the 2022 release, Cain's Marsh by Rigorous Institution, released by Blackwater Records out of Portland, Oregon. This is the special edition with the screen printed front and back. Nice stuff. I really dig that screen print. Looks like a wood cutting. Super fitting for the record, but probably not as fitting as the album art itself. This came out at a time when I was pretty obsessed with Elden Ring, the video game. Whether you're familiar with that or not, I don't know. I'm very familiar with that. I sunk a lot of fucking hours into that video game. And this looks a whole lot like a collage based off of the second area in that video game that you explore once you get going. I love that collage, just killer. Great art on this album. What does Rigorous Institution sound like? They sound like, if you could imagine a world where a Venom, Amoebix, and Hellhammer members were put on dice in a boggle bubble and then shaken up, and you took whoever came up on those 3 dice and put them in a band together. That's what you get with Rigorous Institution. It's very atmospheric. It's very in that vein of Welcome to Hell, black metal meets The Power Remains, or actually probably more appropriately Arise by Amoebix, filtered through the 3 Hellhammer demos, specifically like Satanic Rites, Only Death is Real, Shit Rules. I cannot recommend this album enough. I don't know that it's my ultimate favorite of 2022, but it's up there. Just fantastic. Highly recommended. Second question, last band that I got to see live. It was going to be Lion's Law out of France, but as it happens, it ended up being Reeks, also out of France. I saw them back in August. Got COVID along with his shirt at that show. Here they are again. Reeks, killer French Oi. This is a compilation of all of their material up until 2017. if I'm not mistaken, which includes, I think, just 2 EPs. They have another tape since then, and I think they're working on new material. So, rad, French, just street punk, oi, killer shit. First album is their best. Now this is, as everybody that has already done this video commented, very subjective. It would be tough to say that these are facts. For me, I kind of went through a few different options. I finally settled on Garlands by the Cocteau Twins. This is my favorite Cocteau Twins record. It also happens to be their first. After this, they kind of went into that dream pop territory. Very good as well. But this material here is the Cocteau Twins at their eeriest and darkest best. It is super atmospheric. It is super low-key. It's a great record. It's got a very compelling, almost disturbing sort of sound to it. Lo-fi to a certain degree. 4AD release. This is a reissue. I don't know when the reissue is from. Originally came out 82 or 83, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, Cocteau Twins, Cain's Marsh. No, Cain's Marsh was Rigorous Institution. Garlands. Got Rigorous Institution on the mind. Hat Trick. I pulled a couple actually. Kind of different ends of the spectrum. So for the first hat trick, I'm a little bit limited in what I can pull for these options. Probably not as limited as some others on YouTube have been to do the tag so far. So for part one, hat trick, got Tangerine Dream with their soundtrack to the movie Sorcerer. This is a stellar movie. It is a remake of the French film The Wages of Fear, also a stellar film. Wages of Fear came out in 55, maybe 58, somewhere between like 1955, 1958, if I'm not mistaken. Legendary picture, killer. This is the William Friedkin adaptation. Came out around 77, same year as Star Wars. Starred fucking Roy Scheider. I should know because his name's like literally right there. You got Tangerine Dream here pictured. It's just a rad movie. Takes place in the jungles of Brazil, I believe, South America somewhere. They never really disclose where in South America this takes place. It's just a super intense, super stressful film. The story behind the making of the soundtrack is actually quite interesting as well. They basically put most of this music together without having seen any of the film during the time that it was in production. So, part two of the hat trick, I have the Sorcerer soundtrack on cassette, MCA edition. And then I have it on DVD. It's since come out on Blu-ray. I have not picked up that Blu-ray. This DVD is actually not bad as far as fidelity goes. Can't complain about it. That's Sorcerer. That's part one. And let's move on to the second hat trick, which I just kind of pulled for shits and giggles. That'd be Creator. Pleasure to Kill. Now, we have the vinyl. This is actually a picture disc edition. Came out the year after Pleasure to Kill initially released, called After the Attack. And this is exactly the same album as Pleasure to Kill, plus one track. Noise, I think, was really just trying to milk Creator for all they were worth at the time. And I think at the time that this came out, Noise didn't have much else to put out by Creator at that time. So then we've also got, of course, the cassette from Combat, killer. And then we've got the CD. And Pleasure to Kill. It's like the best thrash record ever recorded, in my opinion. If not second best, I think it would only be surpassed by Sepultura's Schizophrenia. Yeah, I made that kind of a hot take. Next question starts and ends with the same letter, album title. This is one of those questions I did not like. It's just like, dude, I think I'm gonna know that. Zyklome A, made in Belgium. This is just some savage, feral, hardcore out of Belgium from 84. This is an unofficial version. Originals, a little bit out of my price range. I really like the pre-Calvin Peeing on Belgium artwork, 1984. Just rad Euro hardcore. If you like BGK, you're gonna be right at home with this Zyklome A killer. Next question. Born in the same year. Jesus, man, this was another question I didn't like. I don't know who out of what bands I listened to were born in the year that I was born in. I did a lot of Google searching. I came up with a few, but nothing by anybody that I owned examples of. So I kind of converted the question. Album released the same year I was born. Here we have the Heartbreakers with the 1976 Yonkers demos. Just a killer collection of the demos that the Heartbreakers put out prior to the LAMF album. You've got Richard Hell on this record, Johnny Thunders, Walter Lure, Jerry Nolan. Killer lineup. I think even a track or two on here has Phil Lynott. I could be wrong about that, but I think that's right. Anyway, Heartbreakers. Cool shit. This one is a Record Store Day version from a few years back. And it is oddly on this like orange, even though the theme is pink. I don't know. Great record though. 1976 Yonkers demos from the Heartbreakers. Doesn't make it very mysterious as to what year I was born in. Next question. Most listened to album of 2022. I had to really think about this, and this is probably it right here. Talked about this months back, early in 2022 when I first was getting into jazz. It's Joe McPhee, Nation Time. I love this record. This is probably the jazz record next to like the Don Cherry and the Pharoah Sanders that I have listened to the most. It's free jazz, but it's also accessible. And it's also musical. It's not wild and out there and ridiculous, like what I think a lot of people kind of think about when they imagine free jazz. Another album reissued by Superior Viaduct. I like this album so much that I ended up, as I mentioned in my previous video, enlarging that photo and putting it on the wall. See it right there. Pretty sick. Just a killer album. I love it, and I listened to the hell out of this record last year, 2022. Let me re-sleeve my channel. Dropping shit. Most listened to artist of 2022. Man, there's another band I talked about before. Syndrome 81. This is a collection of their EPs and some demos and splits, I believe. most everything that they released prior to this record, full-length record from last year, which I've also talked about. This is their official full-length from 2022. Was another one of my picks for best record of the year. Prisons Imaginaires. Just a rad band, rad record. All together, a stellar collection of oi and post-punk. It's like the softer side of oi. Super melodic, super musical, super catchy, just killer hooks, killer tracks. There's no bad song on any of these. And I listened to the hell out of both of these albums last year. Just killer. Australian album, that would be, I mean, I've got a lot. I've got a fair amount of Australian stuff to choose from. I don't think I ever showed this, though. This would be the Hellmen with Herbal Lunacy. Just a rad album, killer artwork. It's a promotional version, promo version, I should say. You got the band looking real cool. I love that fucking Boris shirt. Boris from Rocky and Bullwinkle, not Boris the Japanese sludge band, because this predates that. This is just a rad album. It kind of bridges the gap between that like melodic hardcore that you were hearing from Australian bands like the Hard-Ons or Thrust, and the more hardcore side of stuff like what you got with like Mass Appeal or their ilk. Just a killer album, Australian record. A record people would be surprised that I bought in 2022. It's a 2022 release, so how appropriate. Willie Carlisle with Peculiar Missouri. This is a country record. Oh my God. Eric bought a country record? I did. I buy a few country records here and there. This is a great album. It straddles that line between like kind of like lo-fi country mixed with a bit of bluegrass and folk. It's rad. Willie has amazing lyrics. Tracks on here are just killer. Van Life is a favorite. I think that's like the big favorite. The radio hit. Buffalo Bill. Title track Peculiar Missouri, which is all a spoken word piece where he's talking about just the goings on of Peculiar Missouri. Grand Designs, killer. Your Heart's a Big Tent. All the tracks on here are just sing-along, anthemic, ne'er-do-well sort of country hymns. Killer stuff. Really dig this record. As far as non-metal releases from 2022 goes, it was definitely a favorite. Next question, we're tackling band I'm a completist on. I just pulled the full lengths. I'm not trying to be here for 45 minutes. Although I probably could be, not too difficult. Tight Bros from way back when. I'm pretty sure that I've talked about these fucking champs before. First album, second album, they've got a 45 and 2 splits that are elsewhere. Love these records. Tight Bros from way back when kind of started their life as the band the Mukilteo Fairies out of Seattle, Washington, who then became Behead the Prophet, No Lord Shall Live, based in a few different cities throughout the Pacific Northwest, specifically Washington State. And then they morphed into Tight Bros, which are like a hilarious, mostly indebted to like AC/DC and like the wilder side of Rose Tattoo, that type of stuff, through a very Seattle, Southern California sort of lens. It's great material. Tight Bros from way back when. I mean, I love that shit. Run of 3 albums. Ooh. I thought about pulling a few different examples for this, but you got My Bloody Valentine with their first LP. This is Your Bloody Valentine. This doesn't sound like the My Bloody Valentine everybody knows and loves. This is like almost in like Cramps sort of territory. Just a killer record. I love this album. Full length. And technically there's an album between that and this next one, but it is almost impossible to come by, and it's not a full length. So we went with Isn't Anything. This is not an original. This is a 2003 repress. Rad material. Also got the CD. And then, of course, Loveless. The one that everybody goes to as far as when they try to point out their favorites. Not my favorite. I think my favorite, honestly, is probably that first one. This is Your Bloody Valentine. I also really like the 2013 MBV record. It's just killer. This is no slouch. My Bloody Valentine. 80s soundtrack. This is a soundtrack that kind of defined my early 80s. My pre-teenage years, like 10-year-old years, real youngster years. That would be the soundtrack to Be Forever Yamato, AKA's in the United States, Star Blazers. Japanese edition of the soundtrack. This came out in 1980. Cartoon did exist prior to 1980. However, it didn't hit U.S. syndication until post-1980. So that's why we're looking at it right now. I love this edition. It is not as great as you would maybe think that it should be. It's good. It's good. It's definitely a fun listen. But it's got that late 70s grandiosity with like an actual orchestra playing, but then there's like disco on here, so it is a little bit dated, but it's fun. It's a little bit of jazz fusion as well. I dig it, and it's something that is very nostalgic for me as well to revisit. So this does actually get pulled from the shelf more often than you would probably think. Be Forever Yamato. Rad. Somebody we lost in 2022. Well, unfortunately, I'll give you two on the same album. And I mentioned one already in not the last video, but the video prior to that. That would be Manuel Gottsching, as well as Klaus Schulze, who both performed on this Cosmic Jokers record, Galactic Supermarket. I kind of credit Cosmic Jokers as mostly being a Asherah Temple project. And this is, of course, a reissue on the Commission de Courier, which I think was Gottsching's label, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Rad album. But yeah, this has both Klaus Schulze as well as Manuel Gottsching. I would have pulled Modest Mouse. We lost Jeremy Green as well. I went to high school with Jeremiah. And my last semester of high school, and we had like half of our classes together. One of the nicest people that I knew as a teenager. Just a real shame. Still kind of in touch with his brother here and there. I'm not a huge fan of Modest Mouse. We used to see them a lot back in the 90s. And I want to say that the last time we went to see them live was at a venue called the Velvet Elvis. And they just about imploded on stage. Pretty much broke up their, granted, they got back together, of course. Anyway, moving forward. Disappointing purchase of 2022. Now, this record's not disappointing because I don't like the material on the record. That would be this Mula Wo Ye Demons Possessed. This is not an official edition, which probably should tell me to learn my lesson, but official editions of this album are they're not easy to come by, and they're not necessarily affordable. And as far as bootlegs go, I've definitely seen far worse. The problem with this one is that it is very warped. It plays fine. No skips. Doesn't even sound warbly. But the warp, when the record's spinning, you just see the warp. And it's just like a bummer, man. It's just irritates the hell out of me seeing the record just in this continuous wave. Again, it plays just fine. It doesn't affect how it sounds. It just looks fucking ridiculous. And wasn't the cheapest bootleg I've ever bought, so in that respect, it's a little bit disappointing. Moolah, if you don't know, I guess I should probably say at least something about most of these records I'm trying to show. Moolah were a weird, almost ambient, psychedelic, atmospheric sort of band out of the U.S. I want to say that came out around like 80? Doesn't say. No, I'm wrong. I'm way off. 1974. Credited as like, almost like American sort of krautrock stylings. Good shit. Good shit. Found a grail. I found a bunch of grails, but this is the one that I happened to pick to show because I haven't shown this. And, well, let's see. I'm going to have to do some clever edit censoring here. Nacho Picasso and Blue Sky Black Death. Here, kind of cribbing Isaac Hayes a little bit with fucking Exalted. This album is one of my favorite hip-hop records of all time. Nacho Picasso is a local rapper to Seattle. He kind of got his start doing like SoundCloud stuff, mixtapes, that sort of thing. He ended up hooking up with Blue Sky Black Death for a total of 3 collabs. This is the second of those. The first one and the third one both got cassette releases, but other than those, no physical release. He's got some other physical media out there. This is, though, my favorite of his. Again, let's cover the nudity. God forbid. Nacho Picasso. He's just a killer wordsmith. His rhymes are border like ridiculous and profound. More often than not. Just a rad rapper, rad album. Love it. Space themed. That would be this William Parker, Mayan Space Station. Just a wild jazz record. It's almost like a fusion record, actually. You've got William Parker on bass, Ava Mendoza on electric guitar, Gerald Cleaver on drums. This kind of came across my radar because Fred Putterman was talking about it at some point the year it came out, which I want to say was 2020. This is a reissue from last year, early last year. The vinyl, I don't believe, dropped until 2021. I think it came out digitally and on CD in 2020. And then it went out of print super fast. So AUM Fidelity reissued it early on in 2022. It's a killer record. Just out there. Modern fusion, dare I say. William Parker's bass playing is killer. Ava Mendoza on guitar, stellar. I liked it so much, I picked up this magazine with William Parker interview. Just stellar. Cosmic out there stuff. Mayan Space Station. Again, this artwork is also a selling point. Just killer. Dig it. What do we have? Non-vinyl purchase. I actually missed that one. Jesus. Non-vinyl purchase. Well, I like to read a whole lot. So I picked up a couple books. I picked up more than a couple books, but I just pulled 2. We've got Disco's Out, Murder's In. The True Story of Frank the Shank and LA's Deadliest Punk Rock Gang. You know I'm going to buy anything with Raymond Pettibon artwork on the cover. This is released also by Feral House, which is another selling point. They're one of those publishing houses like Bazillion Points who put out really good books. Although Feral House also put out Lords of Chaos, which is just a bunch of fucking cringe written down on some paper that you might as well just burn because it's crap. Anyway, this is not crap. This is a killer, almost so wild that it almost doesn't sound true. Some of these accounts. Just a rad read about the violence in LA's punk scene in the early 80s, specifically regarding this character, Frank the Shank. Real guy. And then I also picked up this Blue, The Murder of Jazz, which is not a new book. This was originally published... When was this originally published? 1997. And it's kind of like... you know, a bunch of pages on the commercialization and mass media basically killing, neutering, and overall removing any sort of tenacity or relevance of jazz music in favor of watered down trash for the most part. It's kind of a bad summation, probably. I still haven't gotten all the way through this book. Really good so far for what I've delved into. It kind of assumes that you're a little bit more in the know than I was when I initially got this and started reading it. But I think at this point would be a good time to pick it up and kind of plow right through it. Anyway, those were some non-vinyl purchases. And then the last question, which is another, or no, not the last question, the second to last question, a record that was a present or VCLT. Well, I did receive some VCLT throughout 2022, but it's all been filed and I can't remember what any of it was. So I actually got a gift on Christmas Eve. I was out and about running some errands and I stopped in one of my locals. Was just kind of shooting the shit with the gentleman working there, like most of my locals, first name basis. And he had this record just kind of chilling, looking like it was inching its way towards the trash can. And I said, hey, what's up with that Onslaught The Force record? And he disclosed that the vinyl itself had been partied on pretty hard. And so, just for shits and giggles, he decided to try the wood glue treatment to remove the dirt and shit on both sides, the A and B side. Surprisingly, it came off real clean. Got rid of a bunch of the surface noise, but there's still a couple skips on both sides. And he said, that's going to go in the trash unless you want to take it home. And I said, of course I want to take it home. Onslaught The Force, it's not my Onslaught record. That'd be Power from Hell. This is a good record, okay? I kind of talked a little shit about this while talking to Marty and Aaron, the Metal Theologian, and Pat, Ground Zero Salem. I don't remember if it was before or during or after the Heavy Metallurgy live stream on December 30th, but it was that night. It's a good record. It's just not the Onslaught that I love, which would be Power from Hell. But cool that the dude was just like, take it. I'm going to throw it away. I took it. It plays. And then the last question. An album from 1973, 50 years ago, this year. I pulled Suzi Quatro with her 1973 record, Killer Glam, Dirtbag Glam. I mean, look at the backing band. And look at Suzi, aka Leather Tuscadero, my first TV crush. Just a rad album. There's no bad tracks on here, but I'm particularly partial to 48 Crash, Glycerine Queen. I love this record. It's so good. Suzi Quatro. And that was the last question of this 2023 vinyl tag. I'm about to hit the 35-minute mark. I'm out, YouTube. Don't be shitty. Take care of your friends, your family, the people you love. Take care of yourselves. And I'll talk to you later. Peace out. Bye.